Ireland would soon establish its independence from Britain in its movement they called Home Rule. It was a time of sudden rapid advancements of innovations and science and technology. It was not only an age of great prosperity and wealth and knowledge, but it was also an age of arrogance and hubris. If we can understand the mistakes of our past, we just might be able to use that information to avert the next forthcoming disaster that could very well be directly ahead of us in our own near future. I'm going to read to you the opening paragraph of a book that I have in my library. Once I've finished reading the first paragraph, I'll have just one question to ask. I doubt you'll know the answer, but maybe you do. And the words will appear here on the screen for you to follow along. First, Unitarian Universalists, with that said, it's time to begin the journey. Chapter 1. She was the largest craft afloat, and the greatest of the works of men. Within her construction and maintenance, there were involved every science, profession, and trade that was known to human civilization. On her bridge, there were officers who, besides being the pick of the Royal Navy, had passed rigid examinations in all the studies that pertained to the winds, the tides, the currents, and the geography of the ocean. They weren't only seafarers, but scientists. This same professional standard applied to the personnel of the engine room, and the steward's department was equal to that of a first-class hotel on land. From her lofty command center there ran telegraph lines to the bow at the front, the stern in the back, and the engine room deep within, the lookout's post on the forward mast, and to all other parts of the ship where work was needed to be done. Each line terminated in a marked dial with a movable indicator, containing within its scale every order and reply that was necessary in handling the massive ship, whether it was secured at the dock or far out at sea. From the captain's bridge, the engine room, and a dozen places along the deck, the doors of watertight compartments could be closed in just half a minute by simply turning a lever. These doors would even close automatically in the presence of water without human intervention. With a certain number of compartments flooded, the ship would still float. As no known accident of the sea could possibly fill up too many of them, the steamship was considered to be, dare I say it, practically unsinkable. Built of high-quality steel all throughout, it was 800 feet long. Tens of thousands of metric tons displacement when it was in the water. The enormous twin reciprocating engines offering a combined output of over 45,000 horsepower per minute, every minute of the day without end. In short, this was a floating city, containing within those steel walls all that tends to minimize the dangers and the discomforts of the Atlantic voyage, all that even today still makes life enjoyable. Unsinkable, indestructible, the ship carried as few lifeboats as would satisfy the maritime laws. A genuine titan in every sense of her once great name. Later on in this book, the author gives vivid, horrifying details as to how in the middle of April, on a night that was much colder than normal, around 400 miles southeast from the coast of Newfoundland, Canada, this very ship sideswiped an iceberg on her right side, below the waterline, and sank. The author in this book also explains that because there weren't enough lifeboats for everyone on board, it resulted in the greatest loss of human life in world history during peacetime. Before I say anything else, tell me one thing. What ship is this book describing to all of you?
The Titan.
Titanic. Okay. Who has their phone? Can y'all do a quick Google search for me on the exact day that the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank? See if you can find out the time, too.
I don't want to cue the Jeopardy theme song here.
Anyone know?
April 15th, 1912.
You're close. The Titanic hit an iceberg on Sunday, April 14th, 1912 at 11:40 p.m. It sank at 2:20 a.m. Monday, April 15th. Y'all know what today's date is? It just so happens to be Sunday, April 14th, 2024. What time is it? Oh, it's just about 11:40 a.m. Here's what's going to be really surprising to all of you. What I've read was not written in 1912. These words were not written after 1912 either. They were written 14 years prior, in the year 1898, by this man named Morgan Robertson. In his short novel, he simply titled Futility. 1 month after the Titanic tragedy occurred, he renewed the copyright of his novel. He changed nothing within its pages. He amended only the title on the cover. And he changed it from Futility to The Wreck of the Titan. The ship's name in this novel, in 1898, you already guessed it. It was called the SS Titan. Just as I told you, she was a genuine titan in every sense of her once great name.
Can I ask a question?
Until May of 1912, Morgan Robertson couldn't even give his book away for free. In May of 1912, its sales skyrocketed so quickly, the manufacturers could not produce enough copies. They kept running out of paper and ink. The original blueprint for the Olympic-class trio of superliners, Olympic being the first, Titanic being the second, with a third one completed later, are still in existence today. These blueprints are stored in the archives of the same company that designed and built these enormous ships, Harland and Wolff Shipbuilders, still located in the same buildings in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Here is a side profile of one of the panels of those original blueprints. Here's a colorized reproduction of that panel. This is how the Titanic appeared when she left Southampton on Wednesday, April 10th, 1912. But someone had the brilliant idea of reading through Morgan Robertson's original novel. Then, turning on his Mac computer, he decided to produce an image depicting the Titan as described in the novel. He sized the image down to scale and then put it underneath this image here for comparison. Here is one artist's understanding of Morgan Robertson's fictional ship, the SS Titan. I'm not going to tell you what to believe or what to think. I'm not going to, tell you what to accept or to reject. But maybe, just maybe, perhaps coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. Very much like Morgan Robertson's fictional ship Titan, the historical Titanic and both of her sisters were divided by watertight compartments. The enormous steel walls they called bulkheads are highlighted here in red. It was not an enormous gash, it wasn't a 400-foot-long tear, but a series of thin, fine slits along her side below the waterline. It punctured her peak tank at the very front, flooded all three of her cargo holds, boiler room 6, and as you can see, just a little bit of the coal bunker of boiler room number 5. Just recently, before that, the Olympic suffered catastrophic damage in a collision with another ship in her stern section near her engines, and the Olympic did not sink. Because of the safety innovations they implemented, the Olympic was able to return to the dock for repairs under her own power, giving the illusion that these ships were truly unsinkable. In the worst case scenario, the Titanic was designed to flood with any 2 or 3, or even at the most, the first 4 compartments flooded. But because there was just a little bit more damage into coal bunker 5, the weight of the water pulled her down to the head, and because the bulkheads did not extend any higher than E deck, which is about 10 or 15 feet above the waterline, it caused a cascading effect to spill over the tops of the compartments from one to the next, very much like the compartments of an ice cube tray in your kitchen. Lessons have been learned the hard way. After the Titanic sank, ships were immediately pulled out of passenger service, and during the American and British inquiries of both countries, the horribly outdated maritime laws were brought up to code. One of them, among so many, was more than enough lifeboats for everyone on board, no matter what. The compartments in all ships were extended far above the waterline, some up to B deck or even A deck at the very top. Ships were even given a thick inner skin inside their own hulls, so that no matter how much damage it got on her side, the chances of it sinking again would not happen. However, when the third Olympic-class liner, the Britannic, was being prepared for passenger service, World War I erupted. And the British government requisitioned Britannic as a hospital ship because she was the largest moving man-made object since the Titanic had sank. However, it would never see service as a passenger liner. It would sink while serving as a hospital ship in the Mediterranean. It struck a mine in the Kea Channel in roughly, ironically, the exact same area of the iceberg doomed the Titanic. Today, the patroness of the Mediterranean rests peacefully on her side, not very far from the Greek island of Kea. She is the world's largest underwater shipwreck today, in much better condition than the Titanic is, barely within reach of the world's most skilled scuba divers. There was a woman who survived not only the sinking of the Britannic, but she also survived the sinking of the Titanic shortly before. I think I'll let her have something to say about her experience of the Britannic sinking.
weep over thee in vain. Man marks the earth with ruin. His control stops at the shore.
Unlike the Britannic, the Titanic has been featured in more films, more documentaries, more books, more of everything than any other ship in world history. But even the best films, the most well-researched books, and documentaries can sometimes be very misleading. This is a still shot from James Cameron's film he released in 1997. He was so careful with details, obsessed with accuracy. He built, for the most part, on one side, a near exact 1-to-1 scale of the outside of the entire ship. But there's one thing in this film that will mislead you. If you were in those lifeboats that very night, you would not have been able to make out that much detail. Because it was a moonless night, it was much, much darker. Here is the exact same scene, edited for historical accuracy. This is what you would have seen if you were in the lifeboats with the survivors that night. So is it any wonder why most of the survivors could not be completely sure of what was happening? Why there were so many conflicting accounts or details? It's quite understandable. The Titanic was a technological innovation of science and ingenuity. It was the largest moving object made by the hands of man until shortly after 1912. The Titanic and her two sisters were meant to usher in the end of the Edwardian era and begin a new era of greater prosperity, greater advancements, greater progression. However, history had another plan. For in one night, when most people on the ship were already asleep in bed, in a single moment in time that only lasted around 10 or so seconds, would destroy all of it in less than 3 hours. The Edwardian era had come to an end, but not in the way that people had planned or hoped for. Today there is a volunteer group of content creators specializing in computers. They have the audacious goal of rebuilding the entire ship digitally, every minute detail, from her keel plates all the way up to the top. The project is called 401. Titanic's hull number in her papers were 401. I got a recent update from the team who are doing this, and as of now, they have informed the public that they are approximately halfway done recreating the entire ship. If you have a Windows-based computer, you can explore this much detail on your computer for free at no charge. When the project is finished, they will then port it over into Mac computer systems. I've almost got it running on this Mac. It'll almost run. The Titanic story is one that we have all heard probably more times than we can ever count. And therein lies the danger. The last survivor, Novena Dean, passed away in 2009. Titanic has now long since faded out of conscious human memory, and therein lies the danger that is directly ahead of us. More than 100 years ago, science and technology was suddenly advancing much faster than anyone had ever thought of or hoped. And therein lies the problem. We are rapidly advancing forward in time in technology is speeding up, and it will never slow down. We are heading towards another great tragedy that I am very worried we are not going to see in time to avoid. For the great danger that we may not see in time, it could very well be hidden within the darkness of a moonless night, in the very middle of April. First Unitarian Universalist of Lubbock, you all know the routine by now. Whenever I come out here to visit your community, to be with you, I am insistent at the end of my message to take some time to listen to what you have to say. And you're invited to ask any question that's on your mind. With Josh's permission, I think he would like anyone who would like to probably maybe come up to the side microphone, or if you speak really, really clearly, it's up to you. It is time for me to listen to what you have to say. Your permission, you're the service leader, not me.
Side microphone it is.
Like I said, or technology will let us down sooner or later. Hopefully not that badly. No one has anything to say.
What is the April danger?
Yeah,
What's the danger? I don't know. What is it? Is it just me?
No, I'm confused.
Okay, what's the danger that we're rapidly approaching?
Okay. The largest ship today is the Icon of the Seas. And I have found out that they do not have enough lifeboats for everyone on board. On purpose. Here's the danger. People are forgetting the lessons that they learned the hard way. When the lesson is forgotten, history has a very ironic way of repeating itself. Now, what that danger is, I can't know. I'm not a prophet, and I'm so relieved. But sometimes I wonder, will the next danger be hidden within the darkness of a moonless night?
I think this was a really interesting presentation. Like, I was fascinated the entire time, but I also think we shouldn't. We just shouldn't focus all of our attention on dangers that are going to happen imminently. Oh my God, right now, dire warning, sunglasses, and we're in a fucking church. And I don't know, man. I mean, I don't think any of us came here to discuss the apocalypse or whatever.
I'm not talking the apocalypse. The
No, I'm
apocalypse
just
was going to happen last Monday. But it didn't.
And I want to have intellectual discussion around danger and around fear, rather than just be scared. And I'm just confused. I'm with you on this. I think we're together.
I'm confused too. I don't know if I'm on your side because I'm confused.
Okay.
I'm not saying be afraid.
No, I know, but are we talking about AI or are we talking about?
That's what I thought too.
Billions?
We are on the same side.
Are we talking about wars? Are we talking about nukes? What are we talking about? There are so many things to be afraid of, but fear isn't the mechanism by which we should approach them. We should approach them with
No,
caution.
not fear. Not fear, but approach with caution, assume nothing. AI is one problem, but AI could not be the only problem. Anytime that we put too much trust in technology and we don't have a backup plan, technology is going to fail at some point. And I'm not here to scare anyone. I'm simply here to kind of remind someone, technology, despite its advancements, it can let us down. What do you have to say, Gail?
One of the things that you noted that was noted about the Titanic was that they didn't have enough lifeboats because their hubris made them think, nothing will happen. And why does my brain immediately jump to the thought, in the past 30 years, how much of our wealth has gone from to up here? And I come up with the word greed. And this may be jumping way off, and just forgive me, it's the way my brain works.
If you're in a life coach, you'll be fine.
We went to the, in a way, we went to the arts festival yesterday. Art has something in the gallery. Sarah's got a booth in the main exhibit hall. So you are beautifully and well represented. But I was walking around and absolutely in love with the crowd that I saw. Do you ever look around Lubbock and see the beauty of the diversity of humanity we have in this town? It is utterly fantastic, and it was so beautifully shown to me yesterday. You know, I'm agnostic. I don't believe in God, but the God bit is a good metaphor for me, because this metaphorical God has managed to create such a beautiful, diverse humanity. How do we get to the point that we value every part of that humanity, and that we are in awe of the differences among all of us, to the point that we value everybody, to the point that we look for ways to make sure that as we create technology to help us, we're also looking for ways to make sure it doesn't harm us. And to me, part of that is that we have to value all of us as human beings. That's my thoughts.
I think maybe putting it in the perspective of the Titan and some of the not like when it comes to technology and corporate greed, or even the what's it called, techno chauvinism, where someone was willing to put people's lives in danger with technology and throw off peer review.
You mean with
throw
Ocean
off, yeah, with
The
Ocean Gate.
submersible. Yeah.
The submersible. That's the way how I kind of, when I was talking to Christo back and forth with this, that's how I was imagining. So in my mind, I wasn't kind of confused with the technology part. It has less to do with actually drawing up like fear-mongering of technology per se, or a specific technology. But I think it's been with us throughout humanity, the balance of making this type of progress. We call it progress, but is it hidden behind some sort of ego-driven chauvinism that you cast off care for people's lives and sacrifice safety, peer review, like this thing with like I don't know much about submersibles and about that, but using material that experts in the field said, wait a minute, I think it was carbon fiber, and people
carbon wound fiber by Boeing. It was designed for air travel, not for diving.
Right,
and Rush, the guy that was the owner of the company, he said something in an interview that absolutely shocked me. He says, there are some rules you don't break. Well, I've broken pretty much all of them. I don't care. He literally said, safety is holding us back. And when I heard that on TV, I said, no, safety is keeping you alive, idiot.
Well,
and guess what happened to him? And for the people.
Right, and I was watching a documentary last night and it had a speaker on there, the person who actually did the dive before this one. It was like 2019, 20. This person has done, and it describes himself kind of in the realm of, hey, I'm an entrepreneur and I push the envelope, but he was talking about how this was something where he wasn't listening to his peers who were saying, including himself. He said, I called him before this, and I said, you don't want to do this with other people's lives in that you can go and do it and try it. You can try it out, and if it fails, it's your life. But you're taking on paying passengers, and you're taking on this. You're pushing the envelope, and you're not listening to your peers and not listening to people who have done it before. You're so interested in whether you can do it in an ego-driven way that you're forgetting that there's like you said, you haven't done 100 trials with test pilots willing to give their lives, and you've thrown off all the safety standards. He said there's a point you can do that, but at some point it becomes reckless, and I think that's where maybe the message was going. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's where I meant.
I can't speak for Christo, but I think that's what I got out of it, if that makes any sense.
Because Russ was thinking about so much of what he could do. He never once stopped and think about if he should do it.
Uh-oh, Jurassic Park here.
Yeah, Jurassic Park reference.
So, on the AI front, so I don't know, I know some of you, but I study astrophysics at Tech in a postdoc, and I do AI stuff every single day, and it's made my life so much easier. It does pretty much all my coding for me. It just allows the advancement of knowledge it's just so much faster than it was 2 years ago. And, one thing that people don't really seem to understand is that if AI in America doesn't progress, AI in Russia and China will.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, we're in a new Cold War. It's actually that simple. If Russia has the ability to make deepfake technology, and we do not have the ability to identify what the deepfake technology is, that's if you see a video of Donald Trump doing anything, you can just say, oh, is that real or not? I have no idea. And it's the same with Biden. Yeah, it's the same with Biden. Any video you see is completely out the door. But it's not actually the case now because our technology is good enough to identify deepfake technology. You can look at a fake video and a human cannot tell the difference, but a machine can. You better be damn grateful we have that. There's also some really cool advancements on it. The coolest paper that I've seen about AI was they actually trained an AI to identify autism in children as young as 6 months with 80% accuracy. So what that means is that you have a baby and the machine tells you they're 80% sure that your child is autistic. You can start early intervention. And there's no research on how best to do that because autism wasn't normally diagnosed until about 2, right? But what they did is they took a large group of children, took a little video of them, their icon, their eyes, where are they putting their visual attention. And then they analyzed all of them, a human analyzed them at 2 years old, and said, okay, at 2, which ones do have autism? And then the machine goes back and says, okay, what are the differences in the 2 groups at 6 months? And it actually found distinct differences that a human cannot see, but a machine can. And then they took a different group and they said, okay, now we've got this new batch of kids, identify which ones the machine says are probably autistic. And then say, okay, the ones that are probably autistic, put them on some sort of training program, make them make eye contact, make them interact with humans more than they ordinarily would. And then they grow up, and actually the percentage of them that are autistic is lower than 80. So this is a machine that has actually lowered the rates of autism. Now, whatever neurodivergence is there that is autism, it's still there. They're still autistic. They're just not disabled. So, AI,
it can be a very helpful tool.
No, we don't have a choice. China and Russia, we don't have a choice. And we're effectively curing autism.
They're masking autism.
Yeah.
They're masking it. They're not curing
There's no
it. They're
cure.
causing a problem.
There probably will never be a cure for autism.
I'm sorry. That one I'm a masked autistic, and that's sorry. I did not mean that. Just
Well, no. So what this article, the way that the article put it was, when you're developing as a child, there's you know, is it nature or is it nurture? Is it the fact? Is it like your brain is fundamentally different, or is it when you're young and you're actually not really looking, and there's, you know, thousands of little tiny social cues and social interactions every single day, and neurotypical kids are watching and getting it and learning, and the autistic kids are just looking the other way. And if they were looking, maybe the development would be better in the long run. And I don't know. I mean, but it is one way of looking at it. So yeah. I mean, at age 2, they are, due to this program, less disabled. Yeah.
And then from my perspective, and I spent a jillion years in special ed, but as a human being, if we know that, and if we have programs to help people, are we sending those programs out to everybody in our culture, or are they just skewing to people who have money? Because we have a health system that doesn't recognize the needs of everybody.
I'm not saying be afraid of technology.
Yeah.
I'm a technology addict. You know, I got technology on my wrist all the time. Technology is keeping a good friend of mine who, he now lives in Washington State. He has a continuous glucose monitor on his arm, and he wears an insulin pump. It keeps him alive. So technology is not a bad thing. We have to be careful we don't abuse it and use it to harm people. We must use technology, whether we're traveling or our own personal use, to help others, not harm them.
Yeah, so the question I also heard was, do we let people with lots of power, with lots of financial wealth, determine our policies, or do we allow this to be a democracy? Yeah. And because that's been a question for a good while. People with power do not want regulation. And often, that was the example of the submarine that went down and destroyed the man.
Submersible, yeah.
Right.
It killed all five of them instantly.
Yeah. And I have also seen an AI that can diagnose lung cancer before any human being can. There's no sign of it whatsoever at all. That was on a PBS show last week, I think. So it's awesome technology, but even if we've got other countries, if they're going to run fast with it, it's going to be self-destructive eventually.
Oh.
I mean, it may be self-destructive of everything. We're facing so many destructive forces right now. So I think that it is, it has great possibilities. And I'm, being a lowly individual, I don't know what people have in mind, really, in the long run, that are actually doing all of this stuff. I don't know what you're talking about as far as the fundamental changes of how computers work. I have no idea what that is. But I do encourage that deep thought be put into this. And, using AI, but caution, I think, is a longer-term solution than quick action.
We've got something else rather than carry the plane.
We do? We're not saying carry the plane? It's in the thing?
It is?
Yeah. Okay.
I have
Oh, you know what? Actually, yeah, those would be the closing words.
I have one.
Let's do carry the plane anyway, but then I've got something else as something for the you.
Somebody back here had.
I want to make sure I understood you. Whatever this new ship is that they have deliberately
The Icon of the Seas.
Enough.
It's the world's largest cruise ship. It's in service now, and they intentionally do not have enough seats in the lifeboats for
Is
everyone.
that to save them money, or they want
They
people
think they
to
know
die?
better.
What is
No,
going
they
on?
think they know better, and they don't.
Is this a literal ship or a figurative ship?
Icon of the seas.
That's a real ship.
It's a real ship.
They also won't install any of the sensors that tell you when somebody's gone overboard, and then like that stop the ship in less than a mile, because cruise ships take a full mile to stop and turn around. So like that kid that just died last week, it's because none of the ships will install any of the current safety features for like cruise ships.
They are ignoring the safety features, just like people did. The safety needs, just like people did more than 100 years ago.
Can I just say, so when I was younger, I worked on a fishing boat in Alaska briefly, and we all kind of knew that if you go overboard, you die.
Would you talk a little bit louder? Can you go ahead? Do we want to wrap up and then do questions? Let's do that. We're 10 over. I got kids, y'all.
Let's wrap up, and then we'll continue. Christo's more willing to stay after and answer questions.
When it ends, I have a surprise for all of you. The whistles of the Titanic were recovered from the ocean floor. They got them to work. So after Care of the Flame, I will let you hear for yourself Titanic's own voice.
Wait, are we doing closing words first?
I don't have them. I got them. They're on your order of service. Carry the flame.
Here we go.
Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.
Thank you, everyone.
Or
Go
stay in
peace.
peace.
Or stay in here.
Go or stay.
Titans was,
But you're allowed to leave.
was-
Are we gonna hear the ships?
Want to hear the ships? Yeah.
Yeah, we've got.
And it was named Titan.
Fancy.
The security camera, yeah, exactly. The security camera that's okay in the corner of the room says that you're losing your insurance.
They're the real whistles.
Yeah, well, I mean, is this the sound emergency? What was it? So they rescued these from the wreck, is that right?
From the ocean floor. That's Titanic's voice.
That was interesting. No. I'm gonna ride home with John. Oh, okay, thanks. Okay. Well, Christo, you said in your opening words that one of the mistakes we're making is to think that human happiness is going